She secretly set up her staff to fail. Is this restaurant owner's hiring test fair or just cruel? I am 25F. My uncle owned a restaurant that I grew up in, and I went to school for culinary arts and did take some business management courses as well. I absolutely love this restaurant and do my best. I have worked every position in this restaurant and feel like I know what I'm doing. I do have management, but I try to be involved with everything. My uncle died of cancer, and the restaurant was passed down to me. When I hire a waiter/waitress, I have them shadow someone for a month, and then after a month, I give them 2 tables for a month and gradually increase their load as they get better. However, I usually get some people I know to take the tables. I give them a scenario and have them seated in the new hires section. The scenario could be anything from race, sexual orientation, to dealing with someone that doesn't know what they want or is dressed poorly, someone who is elderly or hard of hearing, language barriers, etc. I normally give discounts to the people who play along, and they give me feedback on how the meal went, if they were treated with respect, what could have been improved, etc. I do this because 1, I want to know where my new hire could improve / what we need to work on. 2, I want to know if my new hire is treating someone poorly. We get all walks of life here, and I want everyone to feel welcomed and have a good experience, so I want to weed new hires out that may make someone have a poor experience. Anyway, I recently let someone go after having 3 negative reviews from people I know and trust, friends and regulars. I did watch the security feed just to make sure of what happened, but it did show that my new hire was not going to cut it. I always feel bad about letting someone go, and I talk to my BF about it, but he feels like what I'm doing is weird and setting them up to fail. I don't see it that way, but maybe I am. I'm still thinking about it and wanted to know if I was being in a hole about how I handle it. AITA for telling my coworker she's whack AF for going to HR for sexual harassment on a male coworker. 2 days ago, my coworker, F. Parker, confided in me that a male employee on a different team but same office sexually harassed her. She said he did the peace sign to his mouth and tongue flicked her. Now, this coworker has said some strange things, not sexual related, but I didn't think he'd do strange things. She wasn't distraught about it, but pissed. Because he's ugly, her words. She said she plans to go to HR tomorrow about this. I told her what he did was crazy, and I still can't believe a grown man would do that in a professional workplace. I did say to her, if he was a 10 out of 10 on the looks, you'd be okay with it though? And she said, hell effing yeah. I'd tell him meet me in the bathroom. While very inappropriate, Shanice and I talk about sex, religion, politics, etc., basically all the things we shouldn't talk about at work. For context, we do hang out outside of work every other week or so. So she is a friend, but like I'm still aware she's a work friend, if that makes sense. So I told Shanice, so you're going to HR because an ugly guy did the tongue flicker? She did a long pause and said, yeah. I told her, so you're mostly upset that the guy wasn't good looking that did this to you, but if he was good looking you wouldn't go to HR? Again, long pause. Then she said, yeah. I told her she's within her rights to go to HR, but it's whack AF that you're only going because the guy is ugly. When I said, whack AF, she shot her neck back like, whoa, and held her hand up and said, it's crazy enough that he even did it, but it wild that he's ugly while doing it. She got up and walked away. She's been standoffish and avoiding conversations with me since the conversation we had. I'm confused as to why or how I could have caused her to be upset. Ada for attending my ex's grandfather's funeral and for what happened. I'm 24M. My ex is 24F. We dated from 13 to 18. Her grandparents were like her parents, and, honestly, they were like mine at times too. I didn't have the best upbringing, but they were great to me. When I found out her grandfather died, I rang her grandmother. That's not as weird as it sounds. We talk all the time. She was so upset on the phone. I felt I had to go to the funeral. Maybe in hindsight I should have just gone to her house. So I paid my respects, put out my hand to her grandmother, and she hugged me and started crying. That set me off. Shook other hands and got to my ex, and she got up and hugged me longer than one probably should. I stayed for the ceremony and went back up to Grandma, honestly to say I'm off, but she asked me to stay around. They, just family, were staying with him for a couple of hours. I couldn't really say no. They had his favorite beers, etc. Never saw that done before, but it was lovely. I found out my ex had a fiancé who was at the funeral but not invited to stay afterwards. She and I were reminiscing. We were both pretty upset. Afterwards, she asked if I wanted to drive around. Neither of us drink, so I drove, and we just went to spots that we enjoyed. She said she didn't want to go home. She spent the night in my bed. Both had our clothes on. There was no cuddling. She was under the sheets. I was over them. I can't express more. Nothing happened. We just spoke until she fell asleep. Hindsight, I should have at least slept on the floor. Next morning, her fiancé rang, and she said she stayed with her gran. I felt bad that she had to lie. Maybe I should have not gone to the funeral and met up with grandma after. I feel like the Ada. Ada for standing my ground after my big boss made fun of me. AMD, my simple background at a meeting? Not an English speaker. So this all mess happened this morning, and until now, I don't know what to do about this situation. So a few days ago, my big boss, the company owner, gave me a very huge responsibility for making our company enter into the elite circle. Basically, he wanted me to come with ideas to make our revenue pass from 400 million to 1 billion, for finally making us do the final step. As you can imagine, this is a huge thing, so for 3 days, I fully focused only on this. I even delayed my surprise for my parents with tickets to America to complete their world tour. So this morning, I was super nervous and stressed into that meeting, hoping that my ideas would be good. At first, when Big Boss's consultants saw my ideas, they were quite happy and told my big boss that my ideas were extremely good. I thought that finally I would gain his respect, but suddenly, while reviewing himself the papers, he started to slip in comments about me and my background. I come from a simple family of farmers, and I have never been ashamed of my simple origins. But you know, one comment, and I let it slide. 2 comments, and I let it slide, but at the third I snapped. Just to let you know his joke comment, as he tried to let it pass. Well, actually, this is a great work for someone like you. Your ideas are great despite your poor family. I never felt much rage and disbelief like this morning, and this time I didn't let it slide. Obviously, I didn't insulted him, even if the temptation was extremely strong, and I just replied, if you really think this about me, I can accept the offer from. So we will see if you still would shame me for my family and my background. It wasn't a fake threat, because for real a few days ago, I received a job offer from our direct competitor company in another company. And after my reply, I showed him the email with the job offer, just to make him realize that I wasn't faking or bluffing. Their offer is very simple. Double my actual salary and my actual boss's position, which is the highest possible for my role as Director Financial Manager. And then I just stormed out and went straight to home, where I'm now. Like 40 minutes after this pathetic scene that I wasn't even expecting and was hoping that would never happen, I started to receive calls from my big boss, a voicemail and a huge bonus for my work that I still didn't accept it. His voicemail is nothing of particular, and basically he asked me sorry, that he didn't realize that his comments were so hurtful, that I could choose the amount of my bonus, that if in 3 months he would see proofs that my ideas works, he could give me the salary I wanted, and all this type of BS. So all this said, I come to the real issue of the situation. I work in this company since 7 years and got 5 promotions. I even changed country for my last promotion because I love working here. I never once complained about my work, and during the years to prove my value, I worked unpaid overtime, took responsibilities that weren't mine, and made risky choices always because I wanted to earn respect and prove my value. This is why of my reputation and why people at my work respects me. And talking honestly, I can just accept his apology and ask for whatever amount I want for my deserved bonus. But what about respect? What about having a reputation? What about credibility? It would just pass the message that I can be bought and that I only care about the money, which isn't even in the slightest the truth. I don't need an enormous bonus, a multi-million euros salary. All I want is that people respect me and give me the value that I deserve. As I said before, my family is a very simple family of farmers, and my values and morals are very simple as my mentality. My life never revolved around money and being greedy. And mostly of all, I never let anyone disrespect me, my family, and my simple background. For this, during years, I lost a lot of friends because of that thing that I hate, when people look at you and treat you like you're a poor and scared guy coming from farmers and someone to commiserate for this. I already had a call with my boss, and surprisingly, he is on my side. And according to him, I was cold enough to not insult my big boss like he would have done. I would never bet a cent, but apparently he is in the concept of respect too. So here I'm in my living room thinking at this and not having the slightest clue on what to do now, and wondering if my reaction wasn't too much. So Ada, for my reaction? My husband, let's say John, has 2 children with his ex, let's say Jane. and they have never been able to successfully co-parent without arguing and Jane threatening John with not seeing his kids again prior to us getting together. Jane often used the kids as pawns, asking John to send her money so he could see the kids or to FaceTime them, etc., and John got used to doing what she wanted to ensure he's seen his kids. 4 years later, John and I get together, with me being the first person John has introduced to his kids. We now have our own child and a home together with bedrooms for both of his kids to stay at the weekends. John works 12-hour days and can't see them during the week. I always found their co-parenting dynamic fairly difficult, seeing the pattern of arguments. Threats of John not seeing the kids from Jane, and Jane contacting him multiple times a week under the guise of it being about the kids, but often turning into conversations about her and her life or asking to borrow money. I, alongside John's family, have encouraged him to put boundaries in place with her, but in the beginning of our relationship, John often hid conversations and texts from me to avoid conflict, and it was a source of the majority of our arguments. Months before getting married, me and John had an argument on his birthday, and Jane sent him a picture of them while together, which prompted John to enter into a text exchange with Jane telling him he loved her and only wanted her and their family, etc. I was pregnant at the time and naturally devastated. John was apologetic, told me he didn't mean it and only said it because he was drunk and we'd had an argument, but the whole ordeal naturally left me feeling really uncomfortable with them communicating. Jane and I spoke after this, and she suggested that Jane and I speak directly to arrange pickup and drop-offs for the kids to avoid any conflict between us all, and John reassured me he wouldn't speak to her anymore. They both have told me numerous times they want nothing to do with each other, only care about the kids, and we went ahead with the wedding, and our son was born 3 months ago. Jane has continued to get drunk and contact John directly, so John blocked Jane to encourage contact via me. Over the last few months, Jane's life has started to unravel due to her drinking. She split up with her boyfriend under extreme circumstances where social work were involved. John and I spoke with Jane on the phone and encouraged her to sort her life out for the sake of the children, and she had expressed how terrible she felt about what happened in front of the children and that she was finished with her boyfriend. John has continued to see his kids at weekends, and I have been the one in contact with Jane for anything to do with the kids, alongside John texting his oldest child, 14, on his own phone to stay in contact. We have remained concerned for the kids and discussed getting a lawyer to discuss custody of them, but ultimately John doesn't want to remove them from their mother, which I respect. Fast forward to today, and the social worker has contacted John to say Jane has been drinking daily and seeing her ex-boyfriend. As a result, social work have demanded that she and the kids go stay with Jane's mother to provide a safer environment, and have suggested John go speak to Jane in her mom's home to provide support to her, encourage her to stop drinking, and show his kids they are a united front. After everything that's happened, the hiding communication, and both of them reminiscing over their relationship, I find this totally inappropriate. John has basically told me not to make him choose, and if I do, he will choose his kids. Ada for thinking that it's not his responsibility to provide support to his ex-partner, particularly due to their previous conduct, and that he should decline to meet her. I, 40-ish F, in a 4-bedroom house with my son, my friend Cindy, 40-ish F, and her son. She pays part of her rent and for food for herself and her son with some kind of government benefits, though I don't pretend to be fully familiar with that system. I know it's difficult to navigate, so I try to have grace and patience about it. There is a long-term disability involved. In the past, if there is some hiccup in the benefits system, like an issue with her EBT card, or they are late paying rent on her behalf, I cover it with no issues. I know she sometimes works under the table when her health is good enough for it, but that's generally none of my business. Recently, she's been driving for some of those online delivery services. I asked her about it, and she told me a specific maximum amount she can earn per month. I assumed she had some kind of actual information about that from them. Last week, though, a letter from social services came for her in the mail. She was upset that someone just have told them that she was working and that people are spreading rumors about her in general. They demanded that she come in on a certain date and time and provide documentation about her work. She does have a tendency to think that any time something goes wrong that there is someone working against her specifically, rather than it being an expected consequence of her actions. Now, I am pretty upset about this, because this is 100% an expected consequence of her own actions. These delivery services are big corporations. She can't expect they wouldn't report her earnings. She has an accounting degree. She's not ignorant. It's the time of year for them to report that. Now she could lose benefits for the act of not reporting her income, even if that income technically was below whatever threshold they have. I feel like she's been extra careless because she knows that this will affect me more than it affects her, because I have always been there in situations like this over the past few years. I am also unemployed at this time, though, so it hits extra hard. I spoke with Cindy about it to tell her how it looked to me that she was being more careless than she would be if I wasn't around. I pointed out also that her reaction that someone must have told social services makes it seem like she thought she could get away with never telling them. At first, she said that she'd tried to contact them, but that she's not going to go out of her way to tell them. I pointed out that she should be going out of her way because it doesn't just affect her, it affects me too. Then she contested that she actually had been going out of her way, even though she'd told me in the previous breath that she wasn't going to do that. She also didn't address why she was upset that they sent her a letter with an appointment time if she had well and truly been trying to contact them to set up an appointment. Seems like a dream come true to me. If an office that was being unresponsive that I actually wanted to talk to reached out to me to schedule. We left it at that, but I still have a bad taste in my mouth. I feel like I should take steps to no longer be roommates with her. TLDR roommate seems evasive when addressing her lack of reporting income that could affect her ability to pay for food and rent at a time when she knows it will be difficult for me to cover her. Am I right to be upset with her, or should I just be annoyed at the benefits office as I usually am? Ada for refusing to pay Christmas dinner for girlfriend's ex and his girlfriend. I, 40M, have a girlfriend, 35F, of 9 months, with 2 sons 11 and 12. We both grew up poor, but I've done well, spent prudently, invested cautiously, built up a management career, never had kids, and so have funds at this stage in my life. I always treat my girlfriend. She doesn't pay for dates or drinks. I figure I'm paying a little back and supporting single moms who are overstretched, and it all works out. After 9 months, I got the hoped-for invitation to Christmas dinner with the family, ex-husband and his girlfriend, plus the 2 sons. I took her that weekend to a bit of a fancy restaurant, as our relationship seemed to be going well, and it was one she'd mentioned in the past as a place she'd like to go to. After dinner, but before dessert, she talked about Christmas dinner and the price, $75, which I was like, okay, that's worth it, looking forwards to it. And then, hey, it would be really nice if you could pay for the family. At which point I said like you, and like one kid, $75 adults, $25 kids. And she said no, since you have so much money and my ex-husband just bought a house. You should really pay for all 4 adults and 2 kids. I have paid for a cheaper condo. He is upgrading to a multi-million-dollar home. I said I wouldn't be comfortable with that, and I need to talk to the ex-husband, and it was a bit much. I said this in a few nicer ways. At which point she kept circling back and saying, you have money, you're being selfish. And I said, gosh, this is an awkward conversation. Are we trying to destroy the night? I said, I think this was a pretty clear no. Can we talk more about it tomorrow? And she disinvited me from Christmas dinner. If that's the case, you shouldn't come at all, and went to the bathroom crying. She came back. At this point I was ripping mad, said I'm not used to being an ATM. I broke up with her, congratulated her for the act of sabotage, gave her a sarcastic golf clap. Yep, started to yell, told her to fuck off and call me when she decides she's done being an idiot, and paid for the bill, but not dessert, and told her to cover the tip. Boundaries. Apologized to the hostess for the scene and dipped. I'm sure I was an asshole, but was I the asshole here? I, 45M, was married to my wife, 44F, for 20 years. I always thought we had a solid marriage, built on trust and loyalty. Turns out, I was wrong. It all started at a party hosted by a mutual friend. At some point, I noticed my wife chatting with a guy I didn't recognize. At first, I didn't think much of it, until I saw how close they were. She was laughing, touching his arm, whispering in his ear. Something about it felt off. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I stayed quiet and just observed. That night, when we got home, I calmly asked her who he was. She brushed it off, saying he was just a friend, and that I was being ridiculous. But something in her tone felt defensive, so I decided to dig a little deeper. A few days later, I checked our phone records. Turns out, she'd been texting this guy for weeks, hundreds of messages, late at night, sometimes when I was asleep next to her. My heart sank. I confronted her again, and this time, she couldn't lie her way out of it. She admitted to having an emotional affair, but swore it never got physical. I didn't believe her. I pressed harder, and eventually, the truth came out. She had slept with him multiple times. The worst part? It had been going on for months. I immediately told her I was done and filed for divorce. That's when things got even worse. Instead of owning up to what she did, she turned around and sued me. She claimed I was trying to financially ruin her by divorcing her suddenly, and demanded way more than she was entitled to. She dragged me through court, making the process as painful as possible. Our mutual friends are split. Some say I made the right call by leaving a cheater. Others think I should have tried to work it out since we were together for 20 years. But in my mind, cheating is the ultimate betrayal. There was no coming back from that. So, AITA for walking away?